All right. Now our topic is non-fungible token NFT, which is very famous these days. So before moving on to NFT, let's look at blockchain use cases. Since its introduction with Bitcoin in 2009, blockchain technology created a massive hype. Some people said that this is the biggest invention since the internet. So there were a huge hype. So people thought that there will be a lot of applications. We will use blockchains everywhere. A lot of companies contacted me. They told me that they wanted to use blockchain in their company. And I asked them why they wanted, and they said that they don't know anything about it, but since it is a hype, they want to be included. So a lot of people want to use blockchains, but after 13 years, we have seen only a few meaningful use cases. So this is one of the, bad things about blockchain, let's say. So in our lecture, in our course, so far we have seen cryptocurrencies. We talk about Bitcoin and a lot of alternative cryptocurrencies. We also talk about financial applications like Stellar and so on. But other than that, we haven't seen any application yet, right? So people are wondering, is blockchain useful for something else? So NFT is another example. This is why we are going to talk about NFT today. But it is also controversial because there are a lot of misinformation. So today I will, in the first part, talk about NFT and what it is. And in the second part, I will try to talk about the security issues involved in NFT. Okay. So, but you might also say that I have seen a lot of academic papers where they propose use of blockchain to solve a problem, but unfortunately, most of them are wrong or redundant. Okay, that is so you have to take it with a grain of salt when you see a blockchain paper where they suggest to use a blockchain in one of the problems. You will realize that you can solve the same problem in different methods in a more efficient way. Okay, so there are only a few examples of blockchains that we have seen so far that are really useful. For instance, like in the case of cryptocurrencies, people couldn't solve this problem until 2009, until the invention of Bitcoin. So this is why we say that it is a useful use case. So this actually created another hype, and people started to ask if we really need a blockchain. So this is why people started to write papers with title, "Why You Do Not Need a Blockchain." So let me recap again. A blockchain might be useful if a shared and consistent data store is needed. Data is contributed by more than one entity, or auditing is required. Records are never updated or deleted after they are written. Sensitive data will not be stored as plaintext. Control of the data store cannot be assigned to a single entity. Tamper-proof log of all data store rights is wanted. So you have to say yes to all of these questions in order to think that maybe you can use a blockchain. This is why there isn't many use cases, okay? So people come up with some ideas, write papers, but most of the time we can come up with better solutions in different ways. So for instance, for a blockchain idea, we always suggest that maybe we can have a blockchain simply for university grades, the diplomas, or for the certificates, so that people with authority, so it will be permissioned blockchain where you can write all of the diplomas you awarded to students or all of the certificates you gave to your customers. So you can write it in the blockchain, so we wouldn't have the trouble to check if they're real or not, because we still a lot of email from different universities sending us a scan of a diploma from Middle East Technical University, which is actually fake. Okay, so this is an example blockchain idea, but of course we might again think that yes, we can do it, but we can also solve this problem with this way and so, right? So there isn't much use cases, unfortunately. So NFT is one of the use cases we have seen so far. So there's also a hype here, but again, there are also some security issues, but it allows us to sell digital art, right? So previously it was not that easy. So we can see this as an useful use case scenario. So let's talk about non-fungible token NFT. So it doesn't have to be in Ethereum, but most people use the Ethereum blockchain to write smart contracts for NFTs. So in Ethereum, tokens are digital assets built on top of the blockchain. So unlike Ether, which is the native built-in cryptocurrency of the Ethereum blockchain, tokens are implemented by specialized smart contracts. So there are two main types of tokens, fungible and non-fungible. All the copies of a fungible token, usually conforming to the standard ERC20 interface, are identical and interchangeable. So such tokens can act as a secondary currency within the ecosystem. So you create a crypto system inside the Ethereum blockchain, or can represent someone's stake in an investment and so on. But all of these tokens are fungible, so they're kind of identical. On the other hand, all the copies of non-fungible tokens, usually conforming to the ERC721 interface, are unique, and each token represents someone's ownership of a digital asset. And actually, this is what we call an NFT. So currently, almost all of the NFTs use ERC721 standard. And whenever you buy a NFT, actually that NFT is simply a token with a number on it, which actually represents someone's ownership of a specific digital asset. So this digital asset can be a digital art, it can be an image file, it can be a video file, or anything that you can write there. Okay. So to be put in a simpler terms, an NFT is an ownership record stored on a blockchain. So this is important because the thing that you buy, like an image or a digital art, is not stored on the blockchain. Okay, your ownership is recorded on the blockchain. This is important, and we will talk a lot about this. So while digital items such as pictures and videos are the most common assets traded as NFTs, the sale of physical assets, for example, postal stamps, gold, real estate, physical artwork, etc., is also steadily gaining popularity. So of course you can sell your car using an NFT, but since there is not a direct connection with your car and NFT, people wouldn't buy it, right? But if a government authority does this, you would trust them and buy this, right? So in order to sell something physical, there have to be a trust involved. But in the digital sales of the NFTs, you do it without the trust. You don't need to trust them because the smart contract makes the transfer of money and transfer of the ownership. That's it. So an NFT is the equivalent of a conventional proof of purchase, such as a paper invoice or an electronic receipt. So NFT that you buy is simply an invoice that is written. That is important. The image, the video you buy, the digital asset is not on the blockchain. A lot of people don't know this, but that is the important thing to know. Because whenever people talk about NFT, they say that, when you buy it, it will stay for hundreds of years with you because it is stored on the blockchain and so on, but the image itself is not stored on the blockchain, and it can be changed, it can be, lost, and so on. And we will see examples of this. Among other things, what make NFTs attractive are verifiability and trustless transfer. Verifiability means that sales are recorded as blockchain transactions, which makes tracking of ownership possible. The NFT concept allows for the trading of digital assets between two mutually distrusting parties, as both the cryptocurrency payment and the asset transfer happen atomically in a single transaction. So this is what I also mentioned. This in the Ethereum and similar blockchains, in a single transaction with a smart contract, you can change the ownership of the token, the NFT, and also you can transfer the money between them. But in order to do that in Bitcoin-like blockchains, since it is not Turing complete, it is very hard to write a single transaction that does this both in time. So you have to actually generate two transactions, one transferring the NFT, the other one transferring the money. And you have to, be sure that both happen. So this is why you have the unlock time which actually locks the transaction to a further block, and you have multi-signatures and so on. So it is a little bit hard on the Bitcoin to do that, and there are some smart contracts that you can download from the internet and modify. So this is why NFTs are sold in the Ethereum-like blockchains instead of Bitcoin-like blockchains. Okay. So several NFT marketplaces, I shorten them as NFTMs. For example, OpenSea, Rateable, and Exi, or Foundation, emerged in recent years to facilitate buying and selling NFTs. So you can create the NFT yourself and sell it yourself, but these marketplaces help you to do it because not everybody is capable of writing a smart contract, right? So you actually transfer your ownership to the marketplace sells it for you, and so on. This has sparked the interest of both crypto art collectors and traders. For example, OpenSea, the largest NFT marketplace, collected more than $300 million in platform fees generated out of trading volume of $3.5 billion in August 2021 alone. So this amount is the money that is spent on the NFTs. And since the marketplace collects some percentage, sometimes it is 15 in some of the marketplaces. So this is the amount of money they collected. But this is around half the volume generated by the e-commerce giant eBay during the same period. So here you're actually selling the physical stuff. As you can see, this digital trading volume is very similar to the e-commerce giants. The all-time combined trading volume of the top three NFT marketplaces, OpenSea, Axie, and CryptoPunks, surpassed $10 billion in September 2021. Okay, and since September 2021, a lot of NFTs are sold again and again. So NFT marketplaces have surfaced as the most gas-eating Ethereum contracts because the smart contracts here are really huge, and you have to pay a lot of gas when writing these smart contracts and using them. So for example, OpenSea made it to the top of the list of gas guzzlers in Etherscan, consuming around 20% of the gas spent by the network. So some people hate NFT because since it uses the network a lot, Ethereum transaction fees are increased due to this creation and minting and buying these NFTs. So let's look at the ERC 721 standard. This is by far the most popular standard for implementing non-fungible tokens on Ethereum. The standard interface defines a set of mandatory and optional API methods that a token contract needs to implement. Each NFT has its own ID to keep track of these unique tokens, which is referred to as token ID. So this is actually what you are buying when you buy an NFT. So you have a unique token ID. For instance, you buy a digital art, and that digital art has a unique ID, and this is actually what you are buying, and this is written on the blockchain. So in ERC 721, an operator is an entity that can manage all of an NFT owner's assets. In other words, an NFT owner can delegate the authority to act on her assets to an operator. So this is what happens in the marketplace. You kind of give them authority to sell the NFT for you. Unlike an operator who can operate on all of the assets of an owner, ERC 721 defines a controller as an entity who is authorized to operate on one single asset held by an owner. An operator, controller, or owner can call the transfer from method to transfer the token ID from the current owner's from address to the to address. So this is how the standard actually works, okay? Those people who have the authority can transfer the token, and this happens when it is bought from the marketplace, okay? So when an NFT is created in this concept, it is called minted. The creator can optionally associate a URL with the NFT. So this is the important part. So this is where actually you combine, you make a link between the digital asset and the token. Otherwise, you simply sell the token ID, and there are some NFTs, there isn't any URL at all. Okay, that URL called metadata URL should point to a JSON file that conforms to the ERC721 metadata JSON schema. The JSON file stores the details of the asset, for example, its name and description, and also contains an image field storing a URL called image URL that points to the asset. So as you can see, when you buy the NFT, you simply write the token ID and you actually write the link of the JSON files. So that is the only thing that is stored in the blockchain. In the JSON file, you have the name and description, and also the URL that your digital assets is linked to. Okay. Of course, this URL can link to an HTTP web page, and this is very dangerous, by the way. Some people prefer IPFS, and we will talk about them in a minute. So NFT essentially connects an digital asset most of the time, but sometimes physical asset, with the record of its ownership. So the only record of ownership is stored in the blockchain. Given a token ID, the associated metadata URL can be retrieved by querying the token URI API of the contract. So you can go to an Etherscan and look at the smart contracts of famous marketplaces. And if you're interested with a token, just learn the token ID, put it here, and you will see the URL of that token as well. Interestingly, the creation and destruction of NFTs, in other words, minting and burning, are not part of the standard. So this standard is really actually, unfortunately, badly written. So it doesn't enforce anything. Here, for instance, you are only providing the name of the digital asset, description, and the URL. But the data in that URL might change, might be removed. So it actually doesn't prove what you are buying. So an easier solution would be, storing the hash of the file itself on the blockchain, so that in the future, if the file is lost, you can say that this was the file that I bought, by showing that its hash is also included in the blockchain. So this is the bizarre thing. They haven't included in the standard. So standard actually misses a lot of points here. And during the next talk, when I talk about the issues in NFTs, I will mention all of these, but I will talk more on the subject. So let's look at how the NFT minting and buying works. So as a content creator, you upload your digital asset to a hosting. So it can be an HTTP web page, it can be an IPFS link, or you can upload it to cloud like Amazon Web Services and so on. So first you create the digital art and put it there. But of course, not all of the NFTs are art. Okay, it is anything a digital asset. So first you have the digital asset and upload it to hosting. Then content creator authorizes seller to mint, because not every creator knows how to mint the NFT. So you go to a marketplace and authorize the seller so that they can, sell your NFT. So seller lists the digital asset on their marketplace. So seller fetches the digital asset from the hosting. Actually, here they should check if this image really created by the creator and if it is authentic and so on, but they do none of these checks. Seller sends transactions to the smart contract on behalf of the content creator. So this is where we have actually decentralized app. Seller mints, in other words, creates the NFT, most probably using the ERC721. So at this part, you're actually writing the anything to the blockchain. So the buyer buys or bids depending on the marketplace. Some allows you to buy instantly. You simply click on the buy button and buy it. Or some allows you to bid. And these biddings in good marketplaces are done on the blockchain. So it is transparent. But since it is on the blockchain, you have to pay money to bid. This is also good because this prevents, people who doesn't plan to buy but place a fake bid. But in other case, the buyer somehow buys the stuff. In the bids case, there is a countdown. at the end of the countdown, the highest bidder gets the NFT. So the token is transferred to the buyer with the help of the smart contract, and this is how you buy the NFT. So the first few steps can be also done by the content creator if you know how to create an NFT and sell it. Okay, so you don't need a marketplace most of the time, but it requires some special to do it by yourself. So this is how the NFT is created and sold on the blockchain. So currently another topic is becoming famous. This is called non-transferable token, NTT, instead of NFT. So NTT is created once and transferred by creator to the owner. And NTT is an NFT that cannot be retransferred. So NTTs can be useful for awards, certificates, and degrees. So think about like this. You create a digital asset and say that this person is the owner of it, and it cannot be transferred to somebody else. So again, this is useful for certificates or diplomas from the universities and so on. So you can show in your wallet or in your account that you're actually graduated from this university or something like that, or you have a certificate from this authority and so on. Okay, so entities are currently, I haven't seen many examples, but I think in the future they will be more famous. Okay, so before conclusion, I told you that there is something called IPFS. So instead of storing your NFTs on an HTTP web page, which would be dangerous because that web page in the future might be down, or somebody else might purchase the domain name and so on. So people prefer to put their files, NFTs, in the IPFS system. So this is not a system designed specifically for NFT. Okay, this system was around, so people thought that storing the NFTs here would be useful. So it is a distributed peer-to-peer permissionless file system. Anyone can join this network. So whenever you have a data called D, it is assigned a unique immutable address, also known as content identifier CID. So you upload your image, and after some hash calculations, this CID is calculated, but it is not the exact hash of the image. And at the end of our NFT issues, I will talk more about this. So when the content of the file changes, the CID also changes. So this is why people prefer to use this in the NFT, because once the link of a IPFS file is put on the blockchain, that content cannot be changed, because once you change the content, the CID also changes, so the link also changes. So your image cannot be changed later if it is on IPFS, but of course it may be lost still. Because this is a peer-to-peer distributed network, somebody needs to host your file so that it is available. So all the storage elements in a directory, the files inside the directory and blocks within those files are stored in a directed acyclic graph structure called a Merkle DAG. IPFS maintains a distributed hash table split across all the nodes in the network to store provider records, which locate those peers that store the requested content. So to retrieve a data item D, a node first look up the provider's PD in the DHT, and then request D from the members of the PD. So this is actually the official definition, but in practice, what it works like this. So when you upload the file, for instance, an image file, it is split into pieces. And these pieces are distributed to different people in the network. And all of the hashes of these parts are recorded in this DHT. So whenever you request that image, you actually request all of these pieces from all of these different network users' nodes. So downloading a 5 megabyte image file may take seconds or sometimes minutes, because you are requesting from looking at these tables and trying to find if anybody still has those parts. And some pieces which are not downloaded for a very long time are deleted by these users. So a file uploaded to the system will not stay there forever. Think about this as a torrent, and actually it works like a torrent system. So think about famous movies or anything. They may not be shared in the future, so they may be lost. So a file that you upload here will be lost. So a lot of NFTs are lost this way. But since most of the time you have the original image file, you can re-upload it to the IPFS. It will be split again to pieces and it will be sent to you nodes again. But since the hash of the split images will be the same that are included in this DHT table, so whenever you need to download the NFT, now that it will work. So this happened a lot. We contacted the marketplaces saying that these images are no longer available in the IPFS. So a few hours later, they became available. So what happened is that those marketplaces had the original image file, so they re-uploaded it to the IPFS. So if you want your NFT to stay forever, you have to keep the original file secure someplace, and whenever it is lost, you have to re-upload it to the system. Okay, so that is one of the downsides of this IPFS system in the NFT.